Hello, my name is Lisa Kelly, and I'm the Program Manager with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, and I work on the Discoverability Network program that helps connect inclusive employers to job seekers with a disability. I'm joined today by Elizabeth Mohler. Elizabeth, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Elizabeth Mohler. I work for Ryerson Magnet as the Inclusive Hiring Project Coordinator on the Align project, a fit-based assessment that matches job seekers to employment opportunities based on fit.
Great, so you can see here the similarity is employment and helping job seekers. So let's tell you a little bit about the platform and a little bit about job search, some tips that may be able to help connect you with an employer. So I'm going to start by mentioning what the Discoverability Network is. So it's an initiative of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. We have 135 local chambers of commerce with 60,000 members. And a lot of them have reported to us that there's gaps in the labor market. They can't find people for jobs. So the Discoverability Network was created to match businesses to job seekers with a disability. So that's the first part of our program. It's an online job matching platform. You're going to hear a few terms. We exist in the Magnet ecosystem. So Magnet is the technology we run on, and discoverability is the portion of that that actually is for people with disabilities. There's also the Align project, another part of the Magnet system that I'm going to have Elizabeth talk to you about in a moment. The second thing that we did in the network, we've started adding free training for businesses, job seekers, and employment service providers. And that's to make sure that everybody understands not just the law, but best practices around disclosure and accommodations, what kind of language to use, and even some things that may change for you as a job seeker with a disability when you're out looking for work. Finally, we create networking events that actually connect you, the job seeker, to inclusive employers. They're not really job fairs, but it's a great way to grow your network, get feedback from an employer on what you need to do to be more job ready, and hopefully make some connections that could ultimately lead to a position. Now, where do you do this? If you're interested on the platform and signing up, you need to go to our website. That's really how we start. You access the training and you access the networking events when you sign up on our platform, discoverability.network. You simply select the job seeker button, create a profile, and start getting matched to employers and learning some of the programs that we have available. Elizabeth, do you want to say a couple words about Align?
Sure. So Align also exists within the larger Magnet ecosystem, and it's an alternative pathway for job seekers who may lack the required experience or may have gaps in their resume due to a disability. But perhaps that's been holding you back from getting those interviews and getting into the labor market. So Align is a great tool that can help you sort of level that playing field. So you'll take a personality assessment, and we do have a whole video outlining what that looks like. And upon completion of that assessment, you'll be provided with a portrait that outlines some of your strengths, your areas for development, how you work and your workforce preferences. And with that report, that can really help you sort of craft cover letters, interviews. You can take it to a job developer or employment coach if you're working with one of those. But the other nice thing about Align is you'll be matched to roles in our system based on your Align personality assessment.
And when you say it's an assessment, it's not really a test, like you don't pass, fail, do you?
Exactly. Absolutely not. There are no right or wrong answers. You answer to the best of your ability. The questions are 144 questions with a strongly agree to strongly disagree option. And the nice thing about the assessment is it's really about painting your own portrait. So it's your story that's being told.
I love that. And we've actually put up on the screen, Elizabeth, 5 pages from the report, the personality report that you get. Do you want to talk just briefly about it, and I can fill in any other things gaps that you've missed?
What's great about the report is, like I said, it helps you tell your story. So maybe somebody, there are 4 colors. There is red, which is very task-oriented. you're somebody that likes to get things done. Blue, which is sort of your down to earth, discipline driven. Yellow, you're inspiration driven, you're big picture thinking, you're really good at sort of those abstract ideas. And then green, you're people person. So maybe that's more of your humanities, customer services. So perhaps again, when you're talking with your job coach or employment counselors, being able to really drill down and say, wow, it looks here like I'm really, really in the green. I've got a lot of green. I'm very people focused. Perhaps I should be maybe thinking about a job where I do get to work with people, because my portrait tells me I really enjoy working with people. I enjoy being able to connect with people. The great thing about this assessment, I should add, is it embraces paradox. You can be both introverted and extroverted. So for example, perhaps at work, you're very outgoing, you enjoy working with people, helping people solve problems, maybe your customer service background, but at home, maybe you're a little bit more introverted.
That's great. And it's very comprehensive report. It's easy to read. I love that it's framed in very positive manners. And for me, this is a great place to start when you're creating a resume and when you're also creating some of your online profiles, say on the Discoverability Network or LinkedIn, and give you some really good ideas about what job, what employers are looking for, and some language around that and some ideas on how to portray that. Can you tell us a little bit about the splashes? So we know we have the 8 areas that you can focus from: people focused, inspiration driven, big picture thinking, extroverted, outcome focused, discipline driven, down to earth, or introverted. How do I interpret this?
So your splashes are your basically your mandala, your 8 aspects in order. So it really shows you where you are in terms of each of those, I would say, characteristics, and then breaks them down even smaller into qualities, as you can see there with the mandala.
Yeah, I see this person seems to be very down to earth, 99%, and it got a score of 98% on outcome focus. So they could really speak to those strengths when they go into a interview, or again, creating any of the job search tools. Okay, I think that leads nicely into a whole discussion around job search tools. I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but it's changed dramatically over my lifetime. I think I have a few more gray hairs than you. But, and I think some of these things are new and it's constantly changing. So this isn't the only job search tools that you can find, but they're, I think, a lot of the basic ones. And I know most people like to start with the resume, but I actually think your story, which is your qualities and your skills, or what makes you you, what's unique, is the most important place to start. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think, being able to really talk about your soft skills and what makes you unique is going to set you apart from other applicants. Anybody can teach a candidate how to, for example, work with a computer program that's necessary in a workplace. But teaching somebody how to be on time, or teaching someone how to really be passionate, those are a little more difficult. But again, being able to use those soft skills or those traits to tell your story is really, really important.
And I think you can weave your hard skills into your story. So this, we're not spending a lot of time. We have a different session on telling your story, which I'd be happy to do a video on. But really you could talk about, for instance, one of mine is I am a lifelong learner. I love to learn. I went back to college at the age of 50. I take about 150 courses a year, updating every year since I've become an employment counselor. That's on top of some certifications for life skills coaching. That's on top of a university degree. So my story, I can weave a really nice one, is this whole idea of being a lifelong learner, which is a soft skill. So you can take those skills outlined in a line, start using them to build your resume, because that's really, obviously, I'm going to want a job that allows me to grow and learn. The basic administration tasks and data entry, probably not a good field for me. So I think there's a lot you can learn by using tools like Align to be the foundation for what jobs you want and are looking for. Because the worst thing is to get a job that, maybe pays well, but you hate. We want you to get a job that you like, that you'll be good at, and that builds off your skills. So start with your story. Start with the job you want. Do some career exploration. It's well worth the time. From there, you build your resume. And I would even say, so you have your resume, Now go to build out things like your discoverability and align profiles, right? LinkedIn is a good one as well. So that's where we really want to capture everything that we've done in our lifetime, because I don't, for instance, usually put that I have a driver's license on my resume, but I do. And for some employment counselors, that's a really critical and key element that you need. And I can easily put that on my discoverability profile without having to worry about, oh, I've only got 2 pages. You can then create a cover letter. You always want to have references. Ask them if they'll give you a good reference. Be working on your interviewing skills, and your interviewing stories that you tell should align back again with all the other tools we've talked about, and with the story, the job, the core qualities that you're looking for. So you wouldn't tell somebody, I don't enjoy working with people, you know, and then, but you know, you've told them when you were first introduced that I'm a people-focused person. It's not consistent. So you're always going to want to make sure your story aligns throughout all these tools. In this new world, and I know you're more proficient at this than I am, Elizabeth, is social media profiles and messaging that you put out on social media. And
Absolutely.
which social media tools do you find particularly helpful?
I have to say that one of the things that I have found really helpful is LinkedIn, but not just putting a static profile up and leaving it be. One of the things that I have found helpful in my professional and education background is to keep updating LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has the ability to post, and those are kind of similar to Facebook posts, although your content's going to be professional focused. But
Always.
they're smaller little bite-sized pieces. So you read an article, you want to respond to it. You could do that in a post, but it's bite-sized. If you want to do a bigger conversation piece, that would be under articles. So posts and articles are a little bit different. Your photo on LinkedIn, again, maybe you want to update that after you've given a really fab presentation. You want to have that nice PowerPoint slide behind you in that photo. Speaking of, there's something I've just discovered recently, Lisa, called the featured section. And that's where I've got a post that I'm really proud of that I wrote. I've got a PowerPoint presentation and a guest lecture that I gave and my CV. So that's up there, and folks can see that featured on the top of my LinkedIn there.
That's
Twitter.
great. And we're borrowing a lot of that. I like Twitter as well. I actually repost between Twitter and LinkedIn. But I think the great thing about Align is think of discoverability. Think of discoverability as kind of the LinkedIn if you have a disability and you want to connect to employers that value people with disabilities and what they bring to the workplace. So you're going to spend a lot of time. You can also upload media under the media section. There's a learning section. You know, you want to continually update so that your information, you get better matches. And finally, you can have a portfolio of work, and increasingly as we're in a digital age, that's important. And again, on the discoverability tool, you can actually post links or actual media on that you want to feature for employees to look at. So there may be other job search tools that we haven't included in here, but these are the primary ones. While they're all different tools, they have the same message. So that thing I called your story, some people call your 30-second summary, which is like, who are you? What makes me different? What do I want? It should all be captured in that. That message is the same as what appears on your resume, your cover letter. How you tell your story, people judge by looking at your social media. And really, your ability to do the job is, what we use, the interview references, your portfolio, and even discoverability and aligned profiles. So they all work together. The more that you can have, the better. We're in kind of an economic lull right now. This is a great time to make sure these tools are up to date and working for you so that you appear as a choice candidate when the market opens up again. Elizabeth, I think mentorships are huge. I'd love you, because I know you've had mentors. I've had one or two, but I think you've done a better job with this. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of mentorship and how you even go about that?
Sure. One of the things that I have found really helpful is having different mentors for different things. So let's break that down. I have a mentor that I'm working with who's different from my supervisor, my thesis supervisor, around going back to school. So she's been through the PhD roadmap. She knows kind of what to expect. She's done work in the field that I'm interested in and in pursuing. So she's been a great mentor, everything from how to fill out those scholarship applications, how to kind of ace that interview when you are talking with your supervisor. Then I've got mentors specific to employment. So people that also live with a disability that have navigated some of those barriers and can talk firsthand to how do you handle disclosure? What does that process look like? What are some tips and tricks to navigating accommodations in the interview world? Then I have field specific mentors that may or may not have a disability, and they can answer great questions around the field that I'm interested in and what does that look like in terms of a career transition and career growth perspective.
And it sounds like it's very active on your part. Like it's not you passively just listening to somebody giving you advice.
Yeah.
So what, you might call them up and say, can you give me some advice and guidance on this challenge I'm facing? Is that kind of?
Absolutely. Yep. Or
Perfect.
It's maybe more informal. Let's grab a coffee and just catch up. I haven't seen you in a while.
So you can have multiple mentors in different fields or areas of expertise. And really you're looking for their guidance and advice. Is that correct?
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect. Now, I always tell everybody when they job search, and this is really important, tailor your resume. So even on the Discoverability Network, when you're applying to jobs, you have the option of uploading multiple copies of different resumes. So if you're applying for a customer service job, you're not going to use your disability consultant resume. Okay, I was a house painter for a while. I'm not going to use my house painting resume for my employment counselor jobs, and I'm not going to use my employment counselor jobs when I want to go become a house painter, because they're different skill sets and different jobs. So you need to make sure that you are showcasing the skills, because we have so many skills, right? When you're filling out the skills section of our matching technology, you won't believe how many skills you have. You'll go, oh, I'm showing off. But actually, human beings have hundreds, thousands of skills all the time. So you're unique. Every job is unique. Every company is unique. So you have to tailor your resume. Now, I've put up on the screen an example of a profile that is incomplete and an example of a profile that's complete. So when you go on discoverability.network, under the My Profile section, which is right under the Home tab on the left-hand side, you can see that here I didn't have a picture, I hadn't filled in my opportunity preferences, I hadn't put in my contact information or a title. And here on the right-hand side, the lower right-hand side, you can see the profile and it's been filled out. I can tell you, when I used the first one, which was pretty much my first year on Discoverability, and I go, this doesn't work. And it was because I hadn't filled out and I wasn't getting good matches. So I'm going to be sent to every job out there because I haven't told them what I'm looking for or what my skill is. So maybe an employer is just advertising a general job. I'll get matched to all those. But once I completed more information on my work experience, my education, my skill sets, my certifications, I got far better matches. And I'd say I'm getting about 2 a month, which I think is great. Yay for me. It goes up and down right now, obviously not a lot, but it's been very, very effective, and they've all been within my field. The diversity self-declaration. Now, this is a really, really important part of our system. So most of the employers that come on the Discoverability Network are looking to have targeted outreach strategies. So really that means they're trying to recruit people who have disabilities. They understand that people with disabilities bring an array of skills and benefits to the workplace. Things like working as or more productively than people without a disability, having as good or better attendance records than people without a disability, working as safely or more safely than people without a disability, and actually tending to stay in jobs a lot longer, which lowers the cost of hiring and recruiting and training new people, and saves companies millions of dollars every year. So a lot of benefits, and that's not even talking about the diverse perspectives and an innovative way of looking at the world which can really drive innovation and productivity within the organization. So our businesses are specifically looking for candidates with a disability. Not because you have a disability, just because they recognize the value. You still have to qualify for the job. I don't want you to think you're just going to get hired because you have a disability. But if you have the qualifications and you have a disability, they're looking for you. And the way that they find you is by using a filter called a diversity filter. And when they apply it, it says this candidate must have a disability. So if you haven't self-disclosed on our system, you're not going to get matched with that employer. You get matched to employers that aren't looking, and are looking for anybody and haven't used that diversity filter. But if you want to reach these inclusive employers, you're going to want to self-declare. Now, when you self-declare, you simply select the equity groups that you belong to. So Elizabeth, what are some of the equity groups that both our systems allow you to identify with?
Person with a disability, woman, member of the LGBTQ community, Indigenous community, woman. So you can select any of those that apply, or you can select as many as do apply to you. And I just want to reassure everyone that this is a opt-in, not opt-out. Employers are posting the must-have because they want to reach that untapped potential and top talent, and really hire an individual that's going to bring that equity lens and diversity perspective to their workplace. So it's a really great way for you to be matched with inclusive employers.
I agree. So you are prompted when you sign up. If you decide you don't want to, you can always at a later time opt in by going down to settings on the left-hand tab bar to the very bottom, self-declaration. Simply say that I self-identify and then choose the equity groups. Now, you're never going to tell the employer what your disability is, and this feature is only going to be used to match you to companies that are actually doing specific outreach. Okay, a couple suggestions for you during this time to start job searching or to improve your job search. I think preparing now. I mean, it's really kind of a bit of a downtime for everybody. This is a great time for you to sign up for discoverability. We actually have been getting postings on our system, and they're, it's been continual, so you want to sign up. Don't just use one tool, use a few. So find the ones that work for you. There may be ones specific to your field. Maybe find an employment agency to be able to work with. The best thing you can do is keep a positive outlook. And I know that sounds challenging, but I think it affects job search and the outcomes more than any other factor. You can have an amazing resume, but if you have a bad attitude or a negative outlook, you're not going to get hired. You can have an okay resume, but a positive outlook, and it will definitely get you hired. Prepare for change, update all your job search tools. Go out, maybe decide, Elizabeth was talking earlier about these short little tweets on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Yeah, they're just bite-sized. It's not like you have to write an article or be a professional photographer. Comment, a positive comment, or at least a comment that is respectfully provided if you disagree. And post those so that people can see you're engaged in your field and your topics. Set realistic goals, and this is really important. I think sometimes people go, I'm job searching, the goal is a job, which it definitely is. But if you judge yourself every day by did I get a job, and it takes you the average amount of time, which is about 4 months, and I suspect longer right now, but say 4 months, every day you're going to be saying, I didn't get a job today, I didn't get a job today. Versus if your goal is, I'm going to apply to 1 job a day, 5 days a week, you've achieved something. So set realistic and achievable goals. They'll get you to the end result, which is getting, a job offer. But it's a lot better for your mental health if it's into bite-sized pieces. Embrace new possibilities. Something might come up that you never thought that you would consider, that because we're all pivoting a bit right now, might work really well. Elizabeth and I, neither big fans of virtual training, and I think we've kind of gotten our groove on here. Is that true, Elizabeth?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Pivoting is so important. And I would say that for anybody, knowing your technology and taking those moments now to learn that technology that's available. If you're somebody with a disability and perhaps you use assistive technology, taking advantage of workshops and training courses that are out there in the plenty right now that are really walking you through the basics of how to use Teams and Zoom and the like, so that you're ready to go when that job opens up.
Exactly. So when someone asks you what were you doing during this period, you can say I took these courses. So you've improved your skills, plus you have something to talk about in the job interview. And finally, network, network, network. All of us have a bit more time. And so reach out and talk to somebody, maybe find a mentor. Measure your job search. Like I said, on average in Canada, it takes 16 weeks to find a job. It's much shorter if it's an entry-level job. Say you're working frontline at a retail or frontline at a quick service restaurant. It shouldn't take you 16 weeks. But if you have some education and you're out looking, on average, it's going to take 4 months. So if we look at that, at the bare minimum, I would set goals. And I'd set, goals that push you a little, but are also actually going to get you to where you need to be. So for me, that would be 5 jobs a week. So you're applying to 1 job a day. And remember, when you apply, that means that you're changing your resume for that job. You're updating it, making it specific to that company and using that terminology that they use. I'd also challenge yourself to once a day to reach out and talk to somebody. Let's have a virtual chat or send an email asking for advice. And then you want to track all that so that you can see you're making progress. Track the number of jobs you apply to. Track the number of jobs you should apply to. Track the number of jobs when you're going to follow up. Even if they tell you don't, there's no harm. Track how your networking calls went. Well, these seem to work, these don't. And finally, obviously, track your interviews. And if you do that, you vastly improve the odds that you're going to be getting a job. Focus on your abilities. So you have a disability, I have a disability. Elizabeth, do you have a disability? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to share that? I shouldn't be asking that. Yeah. So we all have a disability. But the thing to focus on is going to be our abilities. So Elizabeth, I suspect you got hired because of your abilities at your most recent job, not your disability.
Exactly. And I think that one of the things I would say, really to go along with that is if you are going to talk about your disability, be disability confident and use it as an asset. So saying things like, I'm an excellent problem solver and I'm really good at creative solutions because living with a disability since birth, I've had to adapt how I navigate the online world. I've had to think creatively about how I'm going to deal with information that's not accessible to me because of digital barriers. So being able to, and then being able to say, but the solution was I
love the way you're positioning that, because it's the positive way. I would also say that you're probably better than the average person using adaptive and assistive technologies. And that's driven by your disability, but it's not focused on your disability. Mm-hmm. So you could talk about how comfortable you are with technology. And again, it's not about this has been difficult for me, no one will hire me, because those things are not going to motivate an employer to want to hire you. They may be the reality, but they're not the things that we share in a job search. Thank people for feedback. Sometimes you're going to get negative feedback. And that's very difficult to hear. But it's actually a gift because somebody's being honest with you and it allows you to address that. So as we probably noticed during this seminar, I tend to talk over people. It does help me and it reminds me to sometimes slow down and share the airwaves. And it's a really valuable input that I didn't enjoy hearing, but I actively try to remember it. You're not going to get it, be perfect about it, but it can help improve. Be comfortable with your difference. So know what gaps there are that may need to be addressed when you're in the workplace. So by that, for my disability, my gaps are that I can get overwhelmed in the workplace and I need frequent stretch breaks. So the accommodations that I ask for the employer are stretch break at the top of every hour. I've asked for an ergonomic workstation. And then occasionally I might ask for a day where I can work from home, working from home a lot more than 1 day a week now, I can tell you, but that just can give me a break from the busyness of the office. What about yourself, Elizabeth? Are you comfortable sharing your difference and some of the things you've asked for?
Absolutely. One of the things that I find I have to address is I may need visual assistance. What does that mean? Well, it means if there are PowerPoints with images, I may need those described. If there are documents provided in print, hard copy print, I may need those digitally. One of the things that I've tried to do is make my gaps into areas of growth and strength for the team. So for example, when I started, I requested that when in a meeting, any document that we're going to be reviewing is sent ahead of time so that I can not only listen to it, but come prepared with questions and contributions. But that helps everybody. If people have a chance to take a peek at something ahead of a meeting, they can come better prepared and ready to engage. So those are some of my gaps.
I love that you share that, and actually working with you, I've become much better about creating accessible documents, which has helped a lot of the people that I interact with and work with. You know, better use of graphic images, better labeling of graphic images. It's made me so much more aware of how people communicate differently. Don't assume, ask people. So this can be uncomfortable, but you know, if you didn't get a job, for instance, I would ask why. Hopefully they'll tell you, because that's then maybe difficult feedback, but feedback you can incorporate into future job search. Um, if you're unsure whether you'd be able to have an accommodation once the job started, ask. If you can't have an accommodation and you need it in order to do your job, it's best to know that up front, and it's best for the employer to know that, you know, this is something that you'll need. Disclosure is so tricky. It's an art form. So if you have an indivisible disability and you don't need an accommodation, you may choose that you're never going to disclose. I didn't disclose till much later in my life. But if you need an accommodation for the interview, and definitely for the job, and it's going to make you more productive, think of an accommodation as a productivity enhancer. It's not an extra you're getting. It just allows you to be more productive. And what employer wouldn't want you to be more productive in the workplace? Any thoughts on that that you want to share, Elizabeth?
I think going back to what I said earlier about being disability confident, know your accommodations, know what they cost, and ask for what you need as opposed to the sun and the moon and the stars. So for example, when I started at my current place of employment, I asked for a laptop with a screen reader and a braille display because a lot of what I do is presentations. So those are things that, like Lisa said, are going to enhance my productivity, but I was also able to be confident in A, knowing what I needed, B, my ability to use said technology, and also see where to get that technology that's required.
It's actually a great example, because I was just thinking when you said that, what I could have asked for when I said I get overwhelmed at times. So another accommodation that would work really well for me is to have our CEO's office, because it's nice and quiet and set off with a great view. I don't think I get that, and I'm not sure that would be considered reasonable. And I think that's what you were talking about when you said don't ask for the sun and moon. You know,
Yep.
easily, sometimes, and this has been great in my office, they sometimes give me a small office that, you know, we can sign out and I can just work there quietly, which is really great too. Sometimes I'll go home if there isn't. But yeah, just because I think that I would like our CEO's office in the corner doesn't mean that's the accommodation you're going to get. It is a discussion, and it's ultimately up to the employer to decide what the accommodation is, and as long as it fills those gaps, that's considered acceptable. So you have the right to your accommodation, kind of know where those gaps are, maybe have a, what if you don't know what those gaps are? What would you do?
I would say this would be a great opportunity to connect with your employment counselor. If you're not seeing an employment counselor, there's lots of resources on discoverability that you can look at around just sort of learning the art form of disclosure and accommodations, connecting with an employment agency. There's lots out there. but really being able to maybe do some explorative work around what are your accommodations and how do you know what those accommodations look like.
And sometimes the things you had at school or, you know, even at home, you can find an adaptive version that works in the workplace. So yeah, there's lots of, we actually have a training on that as well. So a little bit about what is your story. Remember I said that at the beginning, it's the way people remember you. It's what do you currently do, what do you want to do, and how are you different than other people doing it. So that might be skills or interests. It doesn't have to be about a list of, you know, I've got a master's degree, I'm working on my PhD, and I have an undergraduate degree. That could be, you know, you're a learner, you love it, but it could be as simple as, I'm going to give you some examples, just talking about those soft skills that Elizabeth mentioned earlier. So when you get started on your story, start with the job, not the resume, because remember that information has to be accurate about you. Know what your skills and abilities are. Align can help you get started on that. Weave that story across all your job search tools and then practice. You can't practice enough. So when we build our story, number one, what do we currently do? You could have a job title if you're currently working. Maybe you have a field. So you're a nurse the minute you graduate from nursing school and get your certifications. It's not when you get your first job. So you can claim to, you know, if you're a teacher and you've gotten your teacher's diploma, teacher college diploma, that or degree, that's what you are, even if you've never worked a day in a school yet, other than internships or co-ops, right? So you could be a job seeker. Call yourself a job seeker. That lets people know what you want, which is a job, and it also gives you a title. Or I'm an aspiring, and then the name of the title that you're looking for. What do you want to do? Again, you can tell them by, you know, I want a new job. I'd like to talk to you about mentorship. I'd like to be involved in this project at work. There can be a lot of different things, but know what it is and be clear, because other people can't read your mind and they don't know what you want. And finally, how are you different? So what's your approach? What are you interested in? And try to make that stand out a little bit. Everybody in the world says that they're a great team player and that they'll show up for work on time. Well, you know what? Every worker in the world is expected to have those two qualities. So it's not like you're standing out if you say, I'll show up on time and I like, you know, and I can work with people. You could just make that so much better by just saying, I've been shopping in your store for the last 10 years. I love your products. I'll show up. I'll be reliable. Would you, you know, give me a position as a customer service representative? That's just so much better, don't you think, Elizabeth, than just, hey, I'm a good team player and I'll show up.
Absolutely. What that shows me and what you've just said is that you're authentic. So you're showing your authentic self, and that you're a little bit creative in your responses. You've done some homework. Maybe not only have you shopped in their store for 10 years, but say you're applying to that coffee shop that you go into every day. Maybe you've done some research on the type of bean that they use, or the types of offerings that they have. So you're coming in saying, you know, I'm really I've been a customer here for 10 years. I know a little bit about your product, and you can talk not ad nauseum, but a little bit about the product, and maybe also share a little bit about something that would make you proud to work there. Excited. I'm proud to work here, would be proud to work here because I see your wheelchair accessible. You've got a ramp up there that stopgaps put in.
Perfect. So here's an example for somebody who wanted to be a fraud agent. They didn't have any experience. Fraud agencies work in financial institutions to detect fraud. Maybe that's somebody with identity theft or somebody trying to use a credit card that they've misappropriated. So this individual had no work experience but was very, very convinced. So this is what we came up with to help them introduce themselves in an interview and also at job fairs. So the person said, hi, I'm an aspiring fraud agent. And then what do you want? And they kind of took a creative approach. This is based on a true story. So they said 33% of Canadians have been the victim of financial fraud at some point in their lives. My social media accounts were hacked in 2014, and I realized that I wanted a job that prevents theft. It can be of money, credit cards, or even information theft. It just really affected me, and I want to be part of stopping that from happening to anybody else. How are you different? Well, I enjoy talking on the telephone. I feel really comfortable helping people. I don't mind shift work, and I thrive on change. And if I can help someone keep their information private, all the better. That is a really powerful way to stand out from other people who are just going to say, imagine you didn't have that center part about, you know, the reason, your rationale, the fact that your social media account was hacked into. And all you said is, I enjoy talking on the telephone and I'm comfortable helping people. That's good, but much better is to talk about your motivation for it. And nowhere in there, if you said, I went to school and I got, you know, these degrees, this is powerful enough and it helped the person, the individual, get an interview. So you need to construct something. It's not simple. You need to spend some time thinking about it. You can get the help from a job coach, you know, work through it yourself. But it's really important to have a powerful story that people will remember, and as Elizabeth said, that is authentic. I'm going to give you an example for somebody who decided to disclose their disability when they were creating this. It's also based on a true story. I have permission to use both these stories. Okay, so I'm a graphic designer. I have autism. I experience the world differently than most people. It's made me more attuned to how visuals and written words can portray powerful ideas. I'm seeking a job where my strong understanding of graphics and the written word can help a business communicate more effectively. I think that that's a powerful way to disclose, but do it in a way that's completely appropriate, which explains your difference, explains perhaps, why you've asked for the accommodations you have. I mean, you could even say I'm neurodiverse, or you could even say I just experience the world differently. You don't even have to disclose the disability. Elizabeth, any thoughts on that?
I think, again, it's just very disability positive. It focuses on how the disability is a positive attribute rather than something that you're just disclosing. And I think, who wouldn't want someone that has a really strong conceptual understanding of language and the written word and how the two interplay?
Yeah, now I think with all of these, so when we talk about disclosure, we need to understand that you're disclosing the need for an accommodation. You don't have to ever disclose your disability unless eventually you need a functional assessment once you get the job for certain accommodations. But in general, you're only going to disclose the need for accommodations. So this might be, this person here could have also said, I'm a graphic designer, I communicate differently, so I'm going to require, and then list what that would be. You know, I would prefer email communication, and written briefs might be one. But those are two really good examples of how you can craft those powerful introductions that are about yourself, weave in the main characteristics. How do you know if an employer is inclusive? There's a few ways. Again, this isn't a complete list, but inclusive employers will ask if you need an accommodation because they understand it's not an extra, it's actually what you need in order to do your job. They'll usually have a diversity statement on their website or at the bottom of the job posting. Elizabeth mentioned this about alternative pathways. So they'll usually offer alternative pathways. So that might be large print, braille. It might be a Skype interview instead of a telephone conversation if perhaps you need to lip read. It might be an accessible building. It might be a different kind of structured interview, or getting the questions for the interview ahead of time. There's a lot of different ways that that can present, but usually companies that are inclusive employers will recognize that. They'll celebrate diversity by perhaps showing people with disabilities. That would obviously be a visible disability, or saying that they have an ERG, an employee resource group that is active. They might even celebrate International Day of Persons with Disabilities. They may publish disability-related information, and they will definitely be advertising job positions on both Discoverability and Align. Some final thoughts as we wrap up. Know what your abilities are and know what your gaps are. Then ask for the accommodation that connects those two. Disclosure is an art form and what may be different for each company or job that you apply to. So in some cases you may decide I'm going to disclose before because I need some accommodations for the interview, and the next one you may go, I'm going to disclose 3 months after I start. There's no right and wrong, it's up to you. but do practice, practice, practice disclosing so it's positive and it's appropriate. Elizabeth, any other thoughts on that?
I think the only thing I would add is, just remembering again, we talked about social media, remembering that, your posts, and if you want this, that's fine, but your posts can disclose for you. I write a lot about disability advocacy. I'm on a couple of boards of directors for disability organizations. My photograph may be an indication that I have a disability, but just remembering that the types of posts that you share could perhaps indicate that you have a disability, and that's totally fine, no problem with that. You just want to be aware.
That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Finally, we hope that you will sign up for both the Discoverability Network and for Align. And if you require assistance for signing up on the Discoverability portal, contact Boyan at boyanmitrovic@occ.ca. And for assistance with signing up on Align, you can contact Elizabeth at elizabeth.mohler@ryerson.ca. Thank you so much for joining me today, Elizabeth. And thanks everybody for watching. Okay, goodbye and happy job hunting.